Well, hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz.
And I'm Tina Lokkbakk. Welcome to our next session of Retired.
It's the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new tread, new wheels that move us to our next adventure. Today's episode is a bonus episode that is a follow-up to Courage to Counter Cultural Expectations. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris's pick for Vice President, Tim Walz. We hope you enjoy this bonus episode. So, Tina, the big news, Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz as her pick for vice president. Are you excited?
I was so excited that I actually texted you. I had to look up who he was because I saw it on, I don't know, it was on YouTube or something, and it said breaking news. And of course, then I had to look him up, and I got really excited because also he was a teacher. Also, he was involved in the military. And I have been complaining since the day I stepped into teaching that most decisions are made from people who never were teachers. And so they're so unaware of what a child can actually do. There's such a disconnect. And I thought, wow, isn't this amazing that there was someone actually in the system. And I think being a teacher, Sue, really requires so many different skills that I don't think people understand. I think most people are like, yeah, a teacher's a teacher, but I don't think people really stop to think that you're a leader of 150 up to or more people of every personality, every race, every socioeconomic status. And that requires a lot from a human. And I think that people don't make that connection. So I'm looking at this man having had those experiences to lead groups of people and our young people. I just felt so much hope. And he seems to be very positive. I would like to say, I have to say it, our future President Harris, I think, chose well.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of pundit talk on both sides, and all around her choice. The reality is this is her choice, and it's kind of exciting. He comes across to me as this person who still, as you say, relates to people like teachers do. Knowing not only the kids that you serve, but their families and all, and managing that as a teacher. And then, year after year. So by the time you've taught, especially in a certain place, you may know so many people in the community. And so, and yet you're still yourself. You're grounded in your community. And he still gives that feel, even though he's been a 2-term governor of the state of Minnesota. He's got that dad vibe. And it's kind of like that teacher vibe and the coach vibe. So it's something that shows him as an authentic person. And we all can relate to that.
It was either NPR or BBC this morning. And one of the other things it had mentioned, he's a progressive white male and is a good example for a good population of older white males who have been very conservative in thinking. And I think he's an example like, hey, I'm one of you and I can be open. And I think that he is an example for many older white males. I think that's going to be helpful.
Well, I think so because he validates concerns. Like, for example, he is a hunter. He has guns and he uses them, but he also understands the massive problems that we have with guns, and particularly how they relate to children and the violence against kids in schools and in our society. So, yes, I'm a hunter. I enjoy these things, and it's important to regulate the extremes.
Yes, I think maybe he is our bridge. He's our moderator. He's our mediator. And, he's also showing the bridge, like he's a white male following under a minority female and supports it. That's big. Many men would not support that. And he's an example of like, hey, look, I support this woman. I support what she stands for. And I think that's an incredible courage in a very patriarchal society still.
Well, and that's where we come back to this idea of moral courage. He did the same thing back in the day when this is when he was teach back in the 90s, way well before LGBTQ rights came out to the forefront, and he was the Gay Straight Alliance sponsor on his staff. At the time, I guess his principal or the school had said, it's got to be someone who is the football coach, who's a soldier, who's straight and married, someone who's really macho man, who can not be, for people not to be afraid, for
Yes.
people not to be afraid of LGBTQ people. And
Wow.
good for him for stepping up to that. I think that's marvelous. That again says I support you. I see you as a human being, and I stand behind you. It doesn't matter that you are LGBTQ. It doesn't matter that you're female.
Yes.
You
Or a
are a
minority.
yeah, you are a person that I support, and that's a big deal.
And actually, as we're speaking now, that, yeah, he supports all people, all levels, all things. And one of the quotes I loved this morning was he said, we in Minnesota, we value our neighbors, we value compromising with our neighbors, but we don't compromise our values. And what that is, one of my fundamental beliefs is, Sue, you and I, we agree on many things, but there are things that we don't. But you respect me and I respect you. We both have the space to voice our opinions without threat. And that's what that quote told me, that he can open up his heart to everybody being different, but he's still going to hold on to his values. And I think that that's important.
I agree. It's one of the other things that he said. I heard in an interview with him last week before he was chosen as the VP pick. He said, governors are in a special situation where traditionally they are more likely and more able to work across the aisle, to work with people with differing views. And if there's ever a time in our society that we need people to get
Amen.
back to listening to each other, compromising without compromising yourself and your values, compromise to make positive change and for our society. We need that. We need to get back to that.
I think if we could have leaders that could listen, I think the problem we have now is that there's not even listening. It's an attacking before you even hear. And we need more listening because I think that alleviates a lot of tension just to be heard. So to have leaders that can listen to something that's extreme and opposing to their values, but sit for a moment and just hear it. And I think that's part of our breakdown lately in the last like decade or more, is that there's no listening. Everybody's ready to come from both sides attacking instead of just respectfully listening.
Yes. And I think he's a good listener in calling it out, calling out truth too, because he's the one who started this, the idea of weird, that they are just weird. And you might say, that's name calling. And it could be used in that way for certain. But basically, what he started, he's listening to the Donald Trump's running mate, who is J.D. Vance from Ohio. He said, that's just weird, or he's weird. He's acting in a weird way. The it it wasn't said as a name calling thing, but rather of like, I'm listening to this. I don't understand how this is not seen as strange and weird behavior. So calling things out in an honest, believable way
Yes.
is really different than name calling. Calling it saying, hold it, put the brakes on. This is weird, and that's the tone that he of what he was trying to say. Hello, this is what aren't you all like paying attention? Don't you think this is strange? This is odd. And so that's about truth to me. That tells you you're calling out the truth.
100%. And again, that goes back to that is courage to be in this position to call out the truth. And again, it was tactful. It was more of a curiosity, more like a questioning, not an attack. And I appreciated that. I hope we have some debates.
Yeah, the debates will be very interesting, both for the VP and the president. And I think that could sway people. I heard an article today, and it talked about Walz's origin story because we were talking about Kamala's origin story a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago. Um, he was a high school social studies teacher, which we both love social studies, you and I. He
Yes, we do.
he was taking his kids to hear different candidates, and George W. Bush was at a rally nearby, and so he took his students. This was back in 2004.
Wow.
He took his students to go listen to him, and for kids to hear this person for themselves and make their own decisions. So they're going through the security to go in, and apparently one of the kids had a sticker on his wallet that supported the Democrat. I believe it was John Kerry, and the security said, "You can't come in.
Really?
This would be a concern." And so he stepped forward and said, "Here's my ID. I'm a teacher. These are my kids. They're here to learn about the democratic process." And he was told he was a security risk as well. "I'm sorry, you can't go in." Which
Really?
you think about it, kind of makes sense. You don't want hecklers in there, but at the same time, you'd think that a teacher with his
Teacher.
students would be encouraged to go and participate in the democratic process. So that riled him and his students as well, and he decided he would start running for office. And his students
That's what did
became
it.
his big supporters and helped him with his campaign. So getting and making that democratic process real for his kids and stepping up and doing it. It's pretty amazing.
What a fantastic story. Wow. And I had no idea how he became governor or how he entered politics. Now you've explained it, and it all makes sense because it's unusual that a teacher ends up being a governor.
Well, I
I,
he ran for Congress first, is my understanding, and then went into the governorship. So he's been in in
Progressing though.
yes, and
Yeah.
and and this is the cool thing is, as the chief executive of a state, you do grow capacity, your ability to then do the same thing at the national level. So you're not a total new person, and you have your life experience that you bring with you. They keep talking about him as coach, and I think I kind of like that idea. I think again, goes back to your idea about relating to old white guys. He's coach. So many people have had a coach in their life, and they remember them fondly. His coaching took his team to the state championship, so he was not only a coach but successful on the field. But apparently, well, he was endeared by many. So people can relate to their coaches.
And that also goes to tell you or show us his capacity for leadership. And the things I've read too have been very positive about his coaching as a father figure, which you had mentioned before. And I think that takes a very special kind of coach. And hey, don't we need a father figure? That would be amazing for our country.
Here's another thing that I thought was that needs to be talked about. Um, he doesn't drink. He doesn't drink coffee. He doesn't drink. He prefers Mountain Dew like JD Vance does. He doesn't drink, and this is that uh, moral fortitude that we're talking about. He made a horrible mistake as a young person. I believe he was 31 years old. He had a DUI, and he got pulled over for speeding. He didn't pass a field sobriety test, and then he eventually he was arrested and pleaded guilty to reckless driving. He was charged nothing, $200, and court costs, I guess. So he got off with this very strict warning. He had offered to. This is while he was a teacher. He had offered to quit, and his principal apparently encouraged him to stay.
Wow.
So that moral fortitude of, I made a
Wow.
horrible, horrible mistake, a bad misjudgment, and um, I want to make it right. I'll quit my job. And was told, no, please don't. Um, so, and then to take the next step, I'm not drinking anymore. That takes courage. Uh, I'm disappointed to hear that he had a DUI. I mean, that's so serious. And you
Yes,
remember,
but I have to interject here. This is the biggest thing. We all make mistakes, every single one of us. The fact is, he owned it, and he owned it steps further than most people do. Most people would not go in there and say, I will resign from my job. Most people will not quit drinking. They'll just be smarter about it, maybe. And some maybe won't even be smarter about it. But he took it seriously. And that tells me something about his integrity, his moral compass is
Mhm.
very strong.
I
And
agree.
now I feel like, wow, that is who I want to lead my country. Because
Right.
we all make mistakes, Sue. All
Yep.
of us.
In 1995, this was, so it was a while ago, and the I have to say, thank God he was pulled over. That
Yeah.
police officer was doing their job, and um, this was an impactful, changing moment of his life. Apparently, his wife at the time had said, "You have obligations to people. You can't make dumb choices." And so, he took that. He listened to his wife. He listened to what he already knew, what we all already know as adults, is you just don't make dumb choices, and yet we do. And how do I make it right? And so I think that's pretty amazing.
And I just have to go back to the teaching realm. What a model example
Yeah,
for the students because he owned it so well.
yeah.
What an example that you can make a mistake, you can try and rectify it, that you can own it. And then that commitment. So few people would make the commitment to never drink. They might say, I will never drink and drive. He took it to the next level. And wow, admiration over here.
That's impacting. Yeah, that's impactful. Yep. Here's another fact that I found out about Tim Walz. Um, this is an interesting one, especially in the context of what we're been hearing about the childless cat ladies phenomena that's been going on.
What?
You don't know about the childless? You're not hooked into news, are you?
If it's not on NPR or at BBC, no.
Oh, it totally is all those places. The childless cat lady comment was by JD Vance, and he was,
Oh, yes. No,
yeah,
yes, yes, yes.
basically saying if you don't have children,
Yes,
you're not, especially as a woman, you
yes.
don't really have
No,
a valued place in our society, and maybe we should tax you some more too, because anyhow, um,
yes. And then, yeah, I did read about it, and he did try and smooth things over, but it also tells you where his heart really is
yeah,
because that was an honest, impromptu, spontaneous thing that he's wishing he didn't say. And wow, how judgmental, close-minded, that frightened me a little. Maybe that's why I blocked it out.
childless cat
Woo!
lady, yeah, it's so insulting. It's so amazingly insulting. I mean, all those
It
memes
is.
with the midwives, and all the, yeah,
But I have to say something that both Trump and Vance are very similar because they truly speak what's on their mind. And in some respects, I respect it because I know exactly we all, if we just look at it for what they say, we know exactly what they're really thinking. Where most politicians hide it, they either choose not to hide it or they are not capable of hiding it. But either way, we know exactly where they stand, Sue.
Well, and that's the scary part. We do, and people still support that, which is scary as heck to me. I mean, my God. All right. Well, anyhow, so this is interesting, and I don't know that I've heard any news reports, but and through the reading, I've read this. Tim Walz and his wife had their 2 children through vitro fertilization. So it took 7 years of fertility treatments to have their daughter, whose name is Hope, by the way, which is kind of neat.
Oh,
And this is also hugely in the context of what's going on with women's rights, their right to
right.
yes to women's
Well, it's all about the embryo. You're going with that. Like, is it life? Is it not life? And now it's being potentially rescinded, correct?
well in
In certain
vitro.
states.
Well, and they're talking about taking away in vitro and not
Right.
and then that would preclude people from being childless cat ladies. You can't if that's not done quote correctly.
Oh, that's
you know,
true.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, in vitro can be used by so many people. They've kind of weaponized the idea of, it's only for gay people because, gay
No.
men, they would need in vitro or uh, any lesbian couples as well. But here is a very hetero man and his wife who did this.
Right. And you're right. What a contradiction. Um, yeah, the childless cat lady versus the in vitro. Yeah, and actually, Sue, I hadn't even thought about that. You're right. Most people think of it in terms of gay couples choosing to have children because I have met so many heterosexual couples that have done IVF. I had forgotten that, of course, there's another population. So I'm glad you reminded me of that. But yeah, I think a lot of people have forgotten that there are plenty, if not majority, heterosexual couples with IVF.
And the this is where, the comments made by Vance, like that's not a legitimate way of
Wow.
of having children. It's kind of
Wow.
it's beyond disrespectful. It's disgusting. So
Well, again, he spoke his truth.
right, which is scary. Scary. All right, and then let's wrap this up. What do we know about Tim Walz so far? And I think one of the coolest things, he uses words that we all use, cool and weird and stuff, just normal words that normal humans use. But one of the coolest things, he said, I think we can lay to rest that this is the coolest bill we'll ever be signing. So he named a highway after Prince and signed a bill in purple ink. Wow, that is cool.
So it also shows to me a little bit of playfulness, that he can have some fun. And we need a little bit of that. And in fact, the article I read this morning was about joy. Like, he's kind of a joyous kind of man. And he also spreads that on to Harris. And I think we need a little bit of joy. I
Yeah.
think we need a little bit of uplifting. I think things have been rather heavy and dark. And I think we need some uplifting. And I hope that they can bring that.
That wraps up this episode of Retired. Thanks for listening.
Join us next week on our next adventure. Until then, please feel free to lend your feedback or ask questions by emailing us at retiredpodcastnewtred@gmail.com. You're invited to follow us on Facebook at Retired Podcast New Tread. Check the show notes for links and contact information.
Retired is co-hosted by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It is produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me too. Please click to subscribe so you won't miss your chance to Join our retired road trip.